When Greg built a modest wooden bridge over Whisper Creek, he intended as a quiet invitation to the creatures of the forest, a simple rustic passageway, blending seamlessly with its surroundings. He had no idea this humble structure would change his life. After installing a trail camera, he was stunned by the discovery. A mother bobcat and her two playful kittens had begun crossing the bridge daily, captivating him with their quiet routines and wild beauty. Then suddenly, the bobcats disappeared. They stretched into anxious weeks. Greg grappled with an unsettling question. Had he inadvertently brought danger to the family it grown to love? This is the true story of an alliance between a man and the bobcats who became each other's protectors, quietly guarding him from an unseen threat. Before we start, hit the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. The woods behind Greg's house in Linfield, Massachusetts were more than just a collection of trees. They were a separate world, a wild, breathing entity that began where each manicured lawn ended. For years, he had looked out each's kitchen window, a mug of coffee warming each's hints, and felt the pull of that untamed space. It was a tapestry of ancient oaks, slender maples, and dense undergrowth stitched together with threads of birdsong and the rustle of unseen creatures. A small, determinate creek, which he affectionately called Whisper Creek, carved a meandering path through the forest floor, marking a natural yet inconvenient boundary. Greg, a retired architect in Beach's late 60s, with a quiet demeanor and hints that were still nimble and creative, had spent the better part of each's life designing structures that imposed order on the landscape. Now, in the autumn of each's years, he felt an increasing desire to do the opposite, to build something that didn't conquer nature, but differed to it. He wanted a way to cross Whisper Creek, to step from each's word into its without disturbing the sanctity of the place. The idea for the bridge came to him one crisp October morning. It wouldn't be a grand affair of steel and concrete, but a simple rustic structure of wood, something that looked as if it had grown there. He spent a week sketching designs, each years old, professional habits merging with beach's new, more organic purpose. He chose a sturdy cedar for its resilience against the New England weather and began the work himself. The project became each day's meditation. The scent of sawdust mingled with the earthy aroma of falling leaves. The rhythmic rasp of each's hand plane and the solid toit of the mallet were the only sounds that broke the woodland's peace. When it was finished, the bridge was a thing of simple beauty. It arched gracefully over Whisper Creek, its handrails smooth and inviting, its planks settling into the landscape as if they had always been there. It was more than a crossing. It was an invitation. Curiosity, the engine of so many great discoveries, began to hum within him. Who or what would accept each day's invitation? He wanted to know about the secret lives of the forest, the comings and goings That happened under the clock of darkness, or in the fleeting moments of twilight. The next day, he drove into town and purchased a trial camera. He mounted it on an old oak tree, its lens aimed squarely at the entrance to HDS new bridge. He felt a thrill of anticipation. The same feeling he used to get as a boy, setting up a tent in the backyard, waiting for the magic of the night to unfold. The first few days of footage were a charming, if predictable, parody of woodland locals. A portly raccoon, its masked face, looking directly into the camera with comical surprise, amblet across one night. A family of iti-tailed deer, graceful and cautious, picked their way over the planks at down their breath, misting in the cool air. Squirrels, in their frantic, endless pursuit of acorns, treated the bridge like their personal highway. Greg would download the images each morning, smiling at the silent stories they told. The bridge was a success. It was being used. 10 one Monday morning, everything changed. As he scrolled through the next captures, he stopped each year's breath, catching in each year's throat. There, beat in the ethereal gray-green light of the infrared camera, was a creature of breathtaking wildness. It was a bobcat. The animal was paced at the edge of the bridge, one paw lifted, its two after ears erect and alert. Its coat was a mesmerizing pattern of spots and stripes, a perfect camouflage of tawny, brown, gray, and black. But it was the ace that held him captive. Luminous, intelligent, and utterly untamed, they seemed to hold the very essence of the forest. Greg leaned closely to the screen, each heart thumping. The bobcat took a deliberate silent step onto the bridge, its movements a study in fluid power, and 10, following behind her, 2 smaller versions of herself tumbled into view. Kittens. They were clumsy and playful, betting at each other and their mudhare's switching tail. One pound stone, a drifting leaf, taking a TV smack. Ferocity, while the other tried to climb. The hindreel lost its footing and rolled onto its back in a fluffy heap. The matter, patient and watchful, nudged. TRM Erlaung. Greg watched, utterly mesmerized, as the small family made their way across the bridge and disappeared into the woods on the other side. He replayed the short video clip again and again, a white, incredulous smile spreading across each's face. He felt like he had been given a secret password, granted access to a hidden club. He decided to name the matter bobcat Marble for the beautiful intricate patterns of her code that reminded him of polished stone. For the next 3 weeks, Marble and her kittens became the protagonists of each day's morning ritual. They were remarkably consistent, crossing the bridge from the deeper woods into the strip of forest bordering Which's property shortly after dusk and returning just before sunrise. Greg's trial camera became HD's window into their world. He watched the kittens grow, their playful tumbrils becoming more coordinated, their machines more skillful. He saw Marble's patent teaching her Gentle nudges and occasional stern glances should often pause in the middle of the bridge, lifting her head to send the air, a silent guardian ensuring their passage was safe. Greg grew protective of each day's wild tenants. He found himself worrying about them during storm the hoping they had found a DRY warm place to shelter. He never tried to approach them or leave foot out. He understood the importance of keeping them wild. Each day's role was that of a silent, respectful observer, a chronicler of their quiet daily drama. The bridge was their stage, and he was their soul-captivated audience. The simple wooden structure had become a conduit not just for the animals, but for a profound sense of connection that flowed from the wild heart of the forest, directly into each day's own. The abrupt silence was more jarring than any noise. For 23 consecutive days, Greg's morning had begun with the quiet thrill of watching Marble and her kittens. 10 on the 24th day, there was nothing. The trial summer's memory card was filled with the usual suspects. A skittish fox, Ada, and her fawn. The ever-present squirrels. But of the bobcats, there was no sign. Not a single frame. They probably just found a new route, he told himself, trying to quell a rising tide of unease. Animals were creatures of opportunity, not habit. It was foolish to expect them to adhere to a human-made schedule. But the next morning, the result was the same. And the next. The emptiness on the screen began to feel like a physical presence, a white where the magic hit. Ben. Greg found himself checking the summer's live feed on his computer throughout the day, a feudal act he knew was irrational. The bobcats were unnatural. Still he watched the empty bridge, the sand-dappled leaves, the silent creek, hoping for a flicker of movement, a ghost of tawny fair. By the 5th day, each day's casual concern had curdled into a heavy, persistent anxiety. The woods, once a source of peace, now seemed to hold a worrying secret. He rewatched the old footage, poring over the images of Marble and her kittens as if searching for a clue he might have missed. He saw her maternal devotion, the way she would groom her kittens with a ratong, the constant vigilance in her golden eyes. He saw their innocent play, their complete trust in her protection. Where had they gone? Each day's mind, a workshop, accustomed to solving structural problems, began constructing worst-case scenarios. Had they fallen prey to a larger predator, like a coyote? Had one of the kittens been injured, forcing Marble to find a new cipher? Tertauri, or that out that twisted each year's good the most? Had they encountered a human threat, a speeding car on the nearby road, a trap set by someone less enchanted by their presence? Linfield was a quiet town, but it isn't immune to the conflicts that arose when human and animal worlds overlapped. The silence stretched into a week. The joy he had taken in the bridge soured into something akin to regret. Had he made a mistake? Had each day's intended project inadvertently possessed this beautiful family to danger? The bridge, which he felt like a handshake with the wild, now seemed like a betrayal. He walked out to it, the wood couldn't solid beneath each year's hints. He looked across Whisper Creek into the dense woods as if he could will tear them to appear. But the forest remained silent, impassive, keeping its secrets locked through. Sleep became fitful. It waked in the dead of night, the image of marvelous luminous eyes burned intentions maintained, but to the kitchen window, staring out at the dark, impenetrably wall of trees. The unknown was a heavy blanket, smothering the peace he had so carefully cultivated in each day's retirement. He missed the RM. He missed the simple, profound knowledge that they were out they are living their wild lives and that he was privileged enough to witness a small part of it. The absence of the bobcats had left a hole not just in each day's daily routine but in each day's heart. On the 10th day of their absence, Greg told, stand me any longer. The passive waiting was gnawing at him. He had to do something, even if it was just to confirm each day's fears. He pulled on a pair of sturdy boots, a canvas jacket, and decided to venture out, not into the deep woods across the creek, but into the thick, tangled strip of wilderness at the edge of each day's own property. It was a long shot, but it was the last place he had seen them hit each morning on the camera. He had to know, with a heavy heart and a faint, desperative flicker of hope, he stepped off each day's manicured lawn and into the untamed world that began just a few feet from each year's back door. The undergrowth was thicker than it, anticipated. Tawny vines snagged at each year's jacket, and fallen branches hidden beneath a carpet of damp leaves shifted under each day's weight. The air was cool and smelled of rich soil and decaying wood. It was a word, rue from each day's neat, orderly backyard. Here, nature was in charge, chaotic and beautifully indifferent to human design. Greg moved slowly, methodically, each day's scanning the ground for any sign of passage. A paw print in a patch of mud. A strand of fur caught on a branch. He felt like an intruder, each day scrunching footsteps, a clumsy intrusion into the quiet symphony of the woods. He pushed aside a curtain of low-hanging pine boughs and stopped. Before him was a massive ancient oak that had been toppled in a storm years ago. Its colossal root ball ripped from the earth stood on its side like a gnarled earthen wall, creating a natural cavern beneath. The trunk, the entrance to the hollow, was dark and deep, shielded by a thicket of wild raspberry bushes. It was the kind of place that screamed shelter. Each's heart began to beat a little faster. He took a cautious step closer, each's senses on high alert. He remembered reading that a mother bobcat would move herding several times to protect her kittens from predators and parasites. Could it be? He didn't dare get too close, knowing that disturbing Aiden would be the worst thing he could do. Instead, he circled round, keeping a respectful distance, looking for any confirming evidence. And then he saw a small downy feather, likely from a blue jay, lay near the entrance, and next to it. Almost invisible against the dirt, was a single perfect paw print, no bigger than a silver dollar. A kitten's print. A wave of relief so profound it almost buckled each knees, washed over him. They were here. They were safe. Marble hadn't abandoned each woods. She had moved deeper in, choosing each day's property, each day's sanctuary as the place to raise her young. She had assessed the landscape, the creek, the cover of the woods, the quiet of each's backyard, and deemed it safe. The realization was humbling. She hadn't just crossed each day's bridge. She had accepted each day's unspoken offer of peace. He backed through us, silently as he had come. A huge weight, lifting from each day's shoulders. Back in the house, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. He'd sold Usi the trial camera near the den. That would be an unforgivable intrusion. But he could monitor from a distance. He repositioned the camera, aiming it not at the bridge, but at the wider expanse of each day's backyard that bordered the woods. He zoomed it in as far as it would go, hoping to catch a glimpse of terrain from afar. Each day's patience was rewarded a few days later. In the soft light of late afternoon, a flicker of movement at the edge of the screen caught each essay. It was Marble. She emerged from the woods with the same silent, deliberate grace he remembered. But this time she was on a mission. Her body was low to the ground, her gaze fixed, a portrait of literal focus. She stalked through the tall grass at the very edge of each day's lawn, each step placed with surgical precision. Greg watched, holding each's breath as she froze, her body coiling like a spring. Then, in a blur of tawny fur, she pounced. It was over in an instant. She rose with a small grey creature dangling from her mouth. From the long hairless tail, Greg recognized it immediately. A ittifated mouse. He watched as she carried her prissy back toward the den, disappearing into the shadows to feed her hungry kittens. Greg felt a surge of pride, as if he were watching one of each day's own children succeed. But another thought began to surface. A memory from a town hall meeting or a local news article. Something about mice and the dangers they carried. This isn't just any mouse. The ittifated mouse, he recalled with a dawning sense of clarity, was the primary carrier for the black-legged ticks that transmit Lyme disease. A shiver entirely unrelated to the autumn chill ran down each day's spine. Last summer, each day's next door neighbors. Daughter, a vibrant collegiate lead, hit. Ben struck down by a debilitating case of Lyme disease. He remembered her parents' anguish, the months of fatigue, joint pain, and neurological symptoms she had endured. The threat wasn't abstract. It was real. And it was right here in their leafy, idyllic corner of Massachusetts. He had always been careful, of course,